Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. We have gotten all of Battles of Legend revealed for this week. Earlier this week, actually, all the content creators opened their boxes and pretty much showed the whole set. The set actually drops in about a week officially in the TCG. And so if you haven't gone through and done the due diligence of kind of checking out the whole set, it's kind of a lot. It's a pretty big set. I'm going to give you the lowdown on what the most important new cards are from the set. Not worrying as much about reprints, not worrying as much about, the less relevant cards. We're talking about the more competitively interesting cards, or at least the ones that have the most potential. So, well, let's just get into it. There's a handful of stuff here. This isn't a top 10 list. This is kind of just anything that I think could come up. Even if it's like fringe rogue stuff, I do want to mention it. So let's get into it. Starting off here, we start with God, this name is crazy. Courageous Crimson Chevalier Bradamante. This card is pretty interesting. It's actually an Infernoble Knight card. Pretty much what happens is you can discard this card to target a warrior monster you control and equip it with an equip spell straight from deck to it. And when this card, not equipped with an equipped card, is destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster sent to the grave, special summon it, and if you do, equip that monster your opponent controls to this card. So, I guess it would have a weird battle phase removal effect, but mainly, you're pitching this card to equip Durendal straight from the deck, so that way Durendal can actually search you a fire warrior you want in hand. It's another searcher. I don't expect it to come up all that much, but it is another option for Infernoble Knight. They're getting really good support in the next set anyway. I actually kind of expect that deck to kind of come back at least as a rogue deck once that set drops, Duelist Nexus. It's not really a deck that needs more searchers, but it is another option for them. It is more consistency, and they do just get more and more equip spells, so, there could be something there that's worth it, but we'll see. Moving on, we move to Photon Jumper, another archetype-specific card. I don't think this card is going to, absolutely break Photons or anything, but I know Photons kind of floats in that realm of, trying to push into rogue status. This card's pretty nice. If it's just generically sent to grave, hand, deck, however, a field to grave, it adds a Photon or Galaxy spell or trap. That seems pretty decent to me. It makes stuff like Foolish Burial a good card in the deck potentially, and just stuff like that. So we'll see if it actually comes up and is worth it. But for me, I think it's interesting and it could be nice. Next up, we move to some generic type support. So this is generic zombie support. This is a new, I guess the archetype is called Ghost Fusion stuff or Underworld stuff. They search a new zombie fusion spell. The only thing is we don't have any super specific great zombie fusions at this point in time. There's a couple of interesting ones, but they're not particularly great on field. It's more you abuse those cards to putting Zombie World on the field to make everything zombie, and then you would fuse away your opponent's stuff with Super Poly to make your own zombie fusions. But those zombie monsters themselves, not that great. Now we're still kind of in that scenario, even though we get this good fusion support, they still don't get a new fusion, but down the line, any new zombie archetype comes out that has a good fusion that just requires zombies, this archetype definitely becomes super interesting, because this girl searches the new ghost fusion when she's just sent to grave, same thing as the Photon Jumper, so send it from deck, send it from hand, send it from field, however, boom, you're getting a free card. That's pretty good. It also has a later recursion effect in grave, which is nice as well. You also have Ghost Wyvern. This guy looks awesome, by the way. On normal or special, he adds a Ghost Fusion from deck to hand. So multiple ways to get this Ghost Fusion. Pretty cool. He has another float effect as well, which is kind of cool. There, and then you have the Ghost Fusion. It's not that crazy. It's a normal fusion spell, but if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can banish zombies from hand, deck, or graveyard as material, which is cool. But obviously you have to get your life points lower, so we'll see. It seems like the kind of thing where all we need is one zombie fusion archetype that pays life points anyway, and this card becomes crazy, right? That's all we are. That's all we need to get there. So it's nice to keep in mind. If you're a big zombie fan, I would pick these up now while there's nothing really on the horizon, because as soon as we get that, these cards are going to be super sought after. Okay, next up we have some Reptile support. We actually have 2 cards that I think are really interesting. Not only did we get more Ogdoag support just recently revealed, but these are really nice cards. Black Mamba just jumps on the field if you control a Reptile. It is a little bit awkward that this is a 3 and not a 4. If this was a 4, it'd be so good in the deck, because the deck wants to make rank 4s anyway. But it's still a good extender regardless. And it has a secondary effect that if your opponent has a monster, you can change their monster's battle position and pretty much Foolish Burial an extra reptile. So that's what Reptiles want to do. They want to dump more reptiles to grave. This card not only is just a decent extender at worst, but then also gives you the potential to get extra dumps later on. I like it a lot. We also get Lamia here. This is the other one I think is worth noting. On normal or special, it adds a level 8 exactly reptile monster from deck to hand. I know it's not as great, I mean, that it's just 8s, but to be fair, there's a couple of 8s now. I know, even though they're bricks, some of the Ogdoadic level 8s are not bad. If you get them to hand, you can dump them, so, like pitch them some other way, boom, get those into graveyard that way. There's also a Therian level 8 reptile that kind of extends from hand, so that's a pretty good target as well as an extender. I don't think it's bad, and to be fair, reptiles don't really have a great normal summon, so that's kind of the role that this card could end up facilitating, but we'll see. One new interesting insect card that I quite like, Guard Mantis. He's just a good extender. I mean, just plain and simple. This guy says, pay 1,000, special summon this card. While he's in the monster zone, you can only summon insects, but like insects kind of play pretty pure anyway, so I'm not that worried about that. It's just a solid extender. It's also 2,400 defense, low-key, and it can a quick effect change a insect's battle position on the opponent's turn. There are some weird insect cards that actually get you some kind of effect when their battle position is changed. So, interesting card, just a solid extender, doesn't require anything on field, anything in grave, it just jumps out. I like those types of like pretty free extenders, so very cool. And then finishing up with, I think, the generic typal support, we have 2 plant cards as well. Rose Shaman is actually pretty interesting. You can tribute this card to draw a card. So just okay, just a 1-for-1, just like a card D card. You can also banish this card from grave to add a plant back to hand. And then if that plant was a level 7 or higher, you can also Foolish a plant. So it's pretty good. If you just go through this card, it's a recursion for a free plant and also potentially a Foolish Burial for another one, while also potentially being a free draw. I think this card could come up at some point. We'll see. I don't know if it's quite worth it right this second with like Rika's stuff. Seems pretty optimized, but it's definitely interesting to look at. And then Caddy Corn. This card's really cool. No, pretty much. If this card's special summoned, add a field spell, essentially. It's pretty cool. I definitely think something like Rika, being able to use Aromatherapy, Jasmine, or Lone Fire Blossom to just summon this from deck. Boom. Search either like a Rika Cone or maybe the Therian field spell. Get the plant one. Then the plant one gets you Regulus. Boom. Gets you a negate. There definitely could be some lines with this card. I think this card's really interesting. The fact that it just adds another generic field spell searcher to the pool of, field spell support stuff. Very interesting. Moving on from there, we have Blackwing Sharinga, the Waning Moon. This card is really cool, and not only will this card potentially come up obviously for Blackwings. You'll play this in Blackwings for sure. This card's amazing. It's a very easy extender, and then it's a quick effect Trident if you control a Blackwing Synchro. So you're going to summon this, make a Blackwing Synchro, probably make the Towers guy, and now you have a Towers plus a Trident just off of that. This card's really cool. But there's also, I've seen some funny generic decks where they just play like a bunch of level 8 extenders and this card. So you would just like summon an 8, summon this guy, generically make the level 10 Towers with this engrave, and it's just a pretty cool setup. It's a tuner that extends with the high ceiling of also adding a really powerful interruption. It's a good card. Moving on, we have a generic synchro called Triedge Master. Depending on what levels you use to make it, a 1 and 5 or a 3 and 3. Unfortunately, you can't make this with oh no, you can, 2 and 4, and then 2 and 4. So they have he gets a different effect depending on what levels you use to make him. If you use a 1 and a 5, you can destroy a card on the field, non-targeting. If you use a 2 and a 4, draw a card. If you use a 3 and a 3, this card becomes a tuner. So I think that's kind of cool, but unfortunately, I don't think there are too many decks that get quite that flexible to kind of make it however you want based on levels. So you're probably going to be stuck on making it a specific way, but hopefully it's a 1 and 5 or a 2 and 4, because the 3 and 3 is not as good. It's definitely the worst effect there. But it's interesting. You know, I'm not going to lie. It's an interesting card, but we kind of have a handful of 6s that kind of do similar stuff to this card. Like Coral Dragon kind of does something similar. Stardust, with that one Stardust guy, Charge Warrior. Charge Warrior draws a card. Like, we have a couple 6s that kind of already do what this card does. I'm just not sure this breaks the mold too much there. Okay, moving on. Rocket Coder. This card is really nice for one particular reason in Cyber decks. It could allow us to play Quick Launch, which is a very good extender. Again, one of those extenders that kind of just like doesn't require anything on field or engraved. Just pull him out of the deck. You have nothing you need to set up. But it is a 1-for-1 body. It doesn't plus at all. But, you know, Cybers really appreciates those free extenders. So that could definitely come up. Link a Decoder. This is the bigger thing for Cybers, I think, or as of right now. That other card could come up, but for right now, this card's crazy. This card is used as material for a 2300 attack or more Cybers Link. It special summons itself back. It allows you to make more efficient Link climbing plays. It just makes your plays like one body stronger than it has been in the past. That's pretty good. It will come up for sure. Duality is an interesting card. There's another generic like search card in here. Duality definitely seems like the better of the two. It's a quick effect, which is cool, but it tributes a lighter dark, then summons another lighter dark from hand or extra deck with the same type and level, but a different attribute. So if you tribute a dark dragon, you summon a light dragon, and vice versa. So being able to cheat stuff out of the extra deck is pretty cool, especially if there are some certain things that like match up well with like monsters you're already playing in the main decks. That way it allows you to dodge certain things as well as pull certain boss monsters out for extra interruption at times. There's definitely some really cool interactions with this. This is definitely a card to watch out for as we get more cards added throughout history's future, or Yu-Gi-Oh's future. Keeping an eye on like what pairs up with this card to actually be really powerful. It also draws you a card like later on, which is cool. Sky Striker Ace Azalea. This card will come up not as much in Sky Striker. It is generic. It takes any 2 lighter dark monsters, and it just pops a card. It has the bonus if you have at least three spells engraved to like also have a cool battle phase removal effect, but mainly it's just an out. It's just a pop, and it's a generic one. It's any card, so it's not like if you go Phoenix or Cerberus, you're locked into going for either spells or traps or monsters, and you discard. This card does not have to go hand advantage. And it can pop either. You might lose the body on field if you don't have enough spells engraved, but I think in a lot of scenarios that still works out. A lot of people want to play this in Pirelli because it's a good out to certain floodgates. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it'll come up for sure as a good generic like removal piece. And the last card here I think is probably to me the best card in the set at this point in time. Assault Synchron. This is a crazy generic tuner extender. It requires like nothing. During your main phase, special summon this card from hand, then take 700. It does lock you into synchros, but only while it's on the field. So you summon it, make a synchro, and then you could make Link Fusion Exceed place from there if you want. And then secondly, if a dragon synchro monster you control is tributed or banished, you can banish this card from your graveyard to summon one of those monsters back. So using Bestial Dispater, you can banish something with his effect, and then Assault Synchron like summons it back. So very, very strong plays there. Bestial Synchro could be live with this card. I would definitely keep an eye on that deck to see if it's going to, come into the format and really make some noise. But I do think this card generically is like pretty insane. Not only for that, but even, Synchron decks themselves appreciate such a free, flexible extender like this for sure. But yeah, I think those are all the new cards that I think matter in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's not right this second, I do think a lot of these cards could come up down the line. There's just some good generic support in here, as well as some decent just legacy support for specific archetypes as well. I think this is pretty on par with what Basil Legend has brought. Some good reprints, a handful of interesting like meta-relevant cards, and some Fringe Rogue stuff as well. I think it's good. I think it's a cool classic Basil Legend set. They've always been solid. But yeah. That's everything I have for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below, what you're most excited for from this set, what you're going to be picking up. I'm going to be looking to pick up most of the stuff we talked about here, as I do just like to build millions of decks, like always. So one of my Achilles heels is I can never get good enough with one deck because I just want to play everything, and I want to switch it up every 2 weeks. But yeah. I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.